Hi and welcome. In this video, we are going to talk about Azure App Service Plan, and App Service Environment. So let's first start with what is App Service. So App Service is nothing but a offering from Microsoft Azure, which is a platform as a service offering, and it is used to host your applications, which is a web application, which can be a REST API or which can be a mobile backend as well. So it is a HTTP based service that is provided, which can host multiple kinds of application, and also which has a support of multiple kinds of languages, be it .NET Core, Java, Ruby, and so on. Also, you can choose your favorite operating system, whether it is a Windows or Linux. So now we can see that app services apps is a service which provides a support of different applications, different kinds of languages, and different environment that you can choose from. It's a platform as a service offering from Azure, wherein you can host your applications in the app service, and you are not worrying about the underlying infrastructure, which is taken care by Microsoft Azure. So that is the benefit. Now let's talk about why we should go for app service. What are the benefits of using app service? So first is as we saw, multiple language support. So you can choose your favorite language, and you can develop application and host it in the app service. And the environment is managed. It's a completely a managed environment wherein you need not worry about the underlying infrastructure, and it is all taken care by Microsoft Azure. So your developers can only focus on the coding part, and the underlying infrastructure is taken care by the Microsoft. So if there is any security patches that needs to be applied, or the security aspect of your virtual machine that is hosting your application on the server, so that all things are taken care by Microsoft Azure. So it is completely a managed environment. So you can use the containerization as well when it comes to app service. So you can use Docker Hub, Azure Container Registry. So you can pull out the applications from different sources, and you can just host it on the app service environment. When it comes to app service, so it basically let you globally scale your application based on different conditions, based on different pricing tiers that you choose from. So you can easily scale in application. App service gives you 99.95% of SLA, so it is highly available, and also it is compliant to many important industry standards that are present, and it is more secure to use because it has a support of different kinds of OAuth providers, be it Azure Active Directory itself, Google, Facebook, and so on. Also you can just start authenticating your application by just a click. So there is a feature in the app service which lets you start authenticating your applications, and if you choose Azure Active Directory and if you say yes to authentication, then it will start asking for the username password for that particular Azure Active Directory user. So it is very much easy to implement authentication. You can even use a serverless feature as well, so wherein you can leverage the Azure function, and you can just code accordingly, and you can on demand compute is served in serverless. We just saw what is app service, and basically app service is nothing but a service which is used to host your application, and it is basically a platform as a service wherein you are not worrying about the underlying infrastructure, but you are just managing a code application code, and you are just focused on developing your applications and deploying it on app service. But app service helps you grow your applications globally, scale out, scale in based on the requirement, and we are not worrying about the underlying infrastructure. But there has to be some mechanism where Microsoft Azure will know that on how much scale you need your compute resources. There has to be some mechanism where you just tell Microsoft that that is the requirement for my application or my different kinds of applications as well. So that is when it gives us the app service plan feature, so wherein you define that particular thing in case of app services and all those things. So app service plan defines the compute resources that you need for hosting your applications. So each app service plan defines what kind of compute resources you need. So those can serve your customers, and based on that you can just choose your app service plans. But what exactly it defines is nothing but a region. So each app service plan is specific to your a particular region. So it defines a region in which region you have created app service plan. So let's say uh, the same compute resources that you have created in region A may not cost you same in the region B, because the infrastructure charges or the electricity charges, for example, these all things are differing from region to region. So that's why the app service plan differs from region to region. Also, it defines the number of VMs that are present in the app service plan and the size of the VM, so what configurations are present. And also it defines the pricing tiers. So basically there are three different kinds of pricing tiers that are present. So shared, dedicated, and the isolated pricing tier. So all these things defines your app service plan. Now we have seen that the pricing tiers, so shared, dedicated, and the isolated pricing tiers. So as we talk about different kinds of pricing tiers, so when it comes to compute resources, so it in case of uh, shared app service plan, the resources are shared between different kinds of users, different kinds of organization. So um, it is not recommended that you use your production applications on shared plan. And then it comes to a dedicated app plan, so app service plan. So basically this is a dedicated resources that is dedicated for you, and they are not going to be shared between different users. And now there is an isolated environment as well. So not only your compute resources, not only your virtual machine that are dedicated in this case, but the network that is provided to you is also isolated. So you have a completely isolated infrastructure that is given to you for your organization. So if you need more scaling, if you need more compute resources, so in that case you can go for isolated. So the environment that you use for isolated is known as app service environment. So when it comes to a network part, so in case of shared and dedicated, you are not using a separate isolated environment, but you are using the same network that you use for share and dedicated. So it is basically a public network, Microsoft public network that you use for hosting your applications. But in case you need more control over the network part, if you need more control over the application, more secure application you need, then in that case you can go for isolated, where you have completely a different separate virtual network. So it is one kind of a private cloud that you have implemented virtually. That's why it is known as a virtual private cloud in case of isolated environment. So what all tiers, pricing tier that comes under shared, dedicated, isolated. So based on your need, you can go for different kinds of plans. So in shared one, you have free and the shared. In case of dedicated, you have basic, standard, premium, premium V2, and the isolated. So it differs from feature to feature. But when one should go for app service environment, when one should think of using isolated environment. So if your need is that you need a very high scaling of application, you need isolation from the public cloud. If you need secure network access and high memory utilization, so you can go for isolation. and you can choose a isolated app service plan itself. Now this chart explains us different kinds of pricing tiers that are present for app service plans. So in case of free, you can see that there is a restriction of how many applications that you can host, and so it is a 10 for the free, 100 for the shared, and unlimited after the basic. And also auto scaling, you can see auto scaling is actually available after the standard and above. So for basic you can scale application, but you can scale manually. You have to go and manually select the number of application, that number of instances that you need for your application. So up to 3 instances you can choose, but it is a manual scaling, and it is not auto scaling. But auto scaling is possible after standard app service plan. And you can see different pricing tier pricing models for the different app service plan. So one should go for the app service plan based on the need that you have. And also virtual network connectivity is supported after the standard app service plan. So you can connect your applications to virtual network, which is possible after the standard. And hybrid connectivity is nothing but the connectivity which can be connect to your app on premises applications and all. So this is how you can choose your app service plan. So we saw what is app service and app service plan. Now let's just go ahead and create app service in Microsoft Azure portal. So I'm logged into my Azure portal, and let's see if we have any app services in place. We don't have any, so let's create one. And I'm using my free trial subscription. I'm going to use my resource group, and the name is basically the web application name, and it is a unique across all of the applications present in Azure, because this is basically using Azure websites.net as a domain. Because if you want to override this application name, then you have to use a custom domain feature, wherein you can buy your custom domain of your website and you can just override that. But right now we are not going to worry about this one. So I'm just creating this name. And if you see for the publish, you have a couple of options here. So you can use code, and also you can use a Docker container as well. So for now I'm just using code, and I'm going to select the runtime option. So you have a bunch of options present in the runtime stack: .NET, ASP.NET, Java, Ruby. But right now I'm just selecting a .NET Core. And for operating system, you also have Linux and the Windows operating system. I'm going to select Windows for now. Region, so as we talked about that the app service plan will differ from region to region. So be sure of what app service plan you need, and we'll see if you have that support in that particular region. So now I'm selecting the central US. And so based on the region that you have selected, and if you have app service plan present in that region, so it will populate in this drop down of Windows plan. But you don't have any app service plan, so that's why it is going to create a new one. And also you can just notice here that it is a Windows plan. So app service plan for Windows machines and app service plan for Linux machines are always different, because it is differed by the operating system. So you have different configuration, you different app service plan. So I'm going to name it as my plan for Windows in central US. So now this plan is dedicated to that one. And now here it comes the main important part of this creating app services: SKU and the size. So the SKU defines this basically what configurations of virtual machines, what your infrastructure you need for your web applications. So that defines your app service plan. And right now by default it has selected standard S1. So you have this standard S1 with 100 total ACU, 1 GB of memory. So if I click on change size, so you will see what all options you have. So right now it has selected S1, which is a production one. And if you click on dev test environment, so you have F1, D1 and B1. So if you see F1 and D1 are the shared infrastructure. So if you select these plans, then there is a possibility that it is the infrastructure is shared between different kinds of user. So and there is a limitation of how much of computer you can avail per day. So you have 60 minutes per day for free usage, and you have 240 minutes per day for compute in case of D1 plan. So this is basically good for testing purposes. And B1 is your dedicated plan, and you have comparatively higher charges for this one with 100 total ACU. So ACU is nothing but Azure Compute Unit. So basically there is some mechanism where your charge is calculated, so you can consider of 100 total ACU as one virtual machine, for example. And in case of production one, you can see there are S1, P1, V2, P2, V2. So you can see 210 total ECU. That means approximately you will get two virtual machine in this case, and 420, that means you'll get four VMs. And also we talked about isolated environment. So in case of isolated, you are going to get the separate network, and it will be an isolated network, and you will get a private virtual network implemented. And the main difference is you are scaling up to 100 instances. So that is the benefit of isolated environment. And in case of S1 plan, the auto scaling, you can automatically scale your applications up to 10 instances. But in case of the B1 plan, you are not able to scale it automatically, and you have a manual scaling up to 3 instances only. So for now, let's keep F1 as a plan. Now I'll click on next. It's fine, and we can go ahead and review. I can just go ahead and click create. Now it took around 1 or 2 minutes to deploy the app. So let's go to resource. So now you can see that the app is ready, and you can see that you can browse the applications. If you want to stop your application, you can just stop from here, and you can delete the app as well. So the URL that we have given, you can see that grwtest.azurewebsites.net. So that is a URL that is there, which can be used. If I click on grw test, so now it is telling me that the app is running, but you don't have any code deployed. So also we talked about the security aspect as well. So if you see, in case of authentication authorization here, if you just click on the on app service authentication, and if you just configure Azure Active Directory, then it will start asking username and password for your application if it is accessed. If you click on the identity, so we talked about the security part of app service. So if your application is going to use another service of Microsoft Azure, which is a key vault service, so now to authenticate that key vault and this app service, so that you can communicate and you can access the password secret stored in the key vault. So for that reason, you need to give access to this application. So you need to tell key vault that this is a application that is going to store the values in key vault. So this is the authenticated one. So to do that, you need to just click on this system assigned identity. So if you just read out this, a system assigned managed identity enables Azure resources to authenticate to cloud services such as Key Vault. without storing credential in core. So if you just click on the on and say yes, so now it will create a system assign identity, and now you are going to go into our Azure Key Vault, and then you are going to give access to this application by just providing that system assigned identity. So that is the benefit of securing your applications to use Azure Key Vault. Configuration under setting here for our web app. So configuration is a place where you can store your application settings, connection strings. So all those things that you use to store in your web.config or app.config, so those things you can store in configuration here, and that you can access. Also, if you click on identity, so basically we talked about the security aspect of app service. So if you want to use the third service of now, also there is option to scale out and scale up. So based on your app service plan, if you have a basic plan, so in that case you can manually scale. But if you have plan which is above standard or the standard one, then you can automatically scale out your applications as well. So that is the feature that you can do from here itself, but right now we are using a free app service plan, so that's why auto scaling is currently not available for this resources.